Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Stock Market Outlook video brought to you by DeepView, which is my daily driver for charting, screening, alerts, and much, much more. If you want more information about that, go ahead and check out the link down below in the description, as well as popping up right now. And this episode is also brought to you by TraderLine Private Access because we are currently running a special 3 weeks for $19 trial. Go ahead and check us out if you're looking for a community of like-minded, dedicated traders, and go ahead and check out all our proprietary resources, courses, videos, articles, all of that. Definitely recommend it. You can see the reviews down here, and you can learn a little bit more about us if you go to traderline.com/TL private access. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in to the market. And first, taking a look at the Nasdaq 100 ETF, the QQQ, and looking at a daily chart, you can see that we're making higher highs and higher lows, at least over the course of this year. You can see, obviously, scrolling back, we're still in this longer term consolidation pattern, but scrolling back in, we've pretty much been in an uptrend since this day right here. We've been trending above the moving averages, and let's go ahead and add those onto the chart. This is the 21 EMA in purple, the 50 SMA in red, and the longer term 200-day moving average here in black. We pushed up, formed another consolidation, mini base, pushed higher, formed a consolidation right against this prior pivot, and now we're pretty much closing right at the highs of this year, which is definitely bullish. Mega caps have been stronger, so that's definitely a factor, and that's why we'll take a look at the IWO in just a second. But when taking a look at the QQQ, everything seems to be in order. And even though this has been consolidating, kind of going sideways for the past few weeks, many individual names have broken out, and we'll get to a few later on. Shopify, Uber, DraftKings, to name a few, and I'll take a look at those charts at the end of this video. But we continue to respect this 21 EMA. We undercut a little bit, had an inside day, pushed higher, and now after this latest pullback to this moving average, we had a really strong bar to end out last week. So definitely looks constructive, and the expectation is we continue higher from this point, but we'll have to see, of course, what happens. And we are above all the moving averages at this point, which in terms of how I define a trend is a positive thing, and we basically are in an uptrend as of this point on the QQQ. Looking at the SPY, there's definitely a little bit weaker. You can see we're not yet above this relative point, which if we go back to the QQQ, we're well above we're well above at this point. But going to the SPY, you can see we're still below that level, and this has been consolidating a little bit more, but still looks constructive. And we'll have to see whether we can push through kind of 415 area, which we were rejected down from on this day. But we're above the 21, 50, and 200-day moving average, all of which are rising. But I'd love to see a nice push on volume to really get us out of this prior range. Looking at the IWO, this is kind of the Russell 2000 growth. This is still kind of in a consolidation. This was hit a little bit harder when it comes to the banking issues, the regional banks. It's a little bit more correlated with the smaller caps here, and you can see it a little bit more in these charts. But nevertheless, we're forming a potential higher low compared to this low, and we're right at all those moving averages. So next week, we'll have to see what happens, whether we can push through here finally, get back above 229, 228 or so, and progress higher within this base, or potentially we can roll over and undercut this low, which then would invalidate the higher low, of course. But at this point, we're just kind of potentially moving up the right-hand side or starting to move up the right-hand side of a consolidation. So definitely a key index to watch when it comes to smaller cap growth names. Looking at the IWM, which is the kind of small caps in general, this is weaker than IWO, so weaker than just specifically the growth portion. And we're actually below all the key moving averages. The 21 EMA is declining, 50 SMA declining as well, 200-day just declining as well. And going back to the IWO, just to show that discrepancy, the difference here, these are much more flatlining. The 50 SMA is declining and has been resistance. So this will be a key spot to watch next week, whether we can clear the 224 level and get towards that 230 level right here, 228 to 230 range. Moving on to some key stocks. First thing, look at Apple. Really nice earnings report. You can see how this has been respecting the 21 EMA, and all these moving averages are, in nice uptrends. We're in a nice formation of higher highs and higher lows, and we're actually pretty darn close to all-time highs. I believe we're only about 5% away. Let's go ahead and check that. So just about 5% away from all-time highs. So that definitely is, a strong indication of the health of at least the mega caps and especially Apple. And you can see we had a push higher, short consolidation, broke out of that, retested that, had a nice upside reversal here, and just continue to respect that 21 EMA. So at some point, we will have more of a rest, another consolidation similar to this, and maybe a pullback to that 50 SMA. But so far, we are in a strong uptrend here in Apple, and nice volume here as well. And let's actually go ahead and open up these fundamentals here. The estimates going forward are pretty darn positive. So that is Apple. Moving on to Google, you can see this is less in trend for sure. We're still kind of forming out the bottom of this overall consolidation here, but it does look constructive off this bottom and looks primed to push through 108. Obviously, if we break under 104, break below the 50 SMA, that would invalidate this consolidation. But so far, this does look constructive, and we'll have to see whether we can push higher from this point. Once again, estimates in terms of earnings and sales are pretty strong in this name going forward, so we'll have to see what happens. And yeah, looks prime for a push through here, 109, which could potentially start a new stage 2 uptrend. Moving on to Meta, this has been one of the strongest stocks in the market since it recovered from this earnings gap down, pushed through that high volume close on this day, formed a consolidation, and then started a trend above the 21 EMA. Look at how it respected this key EMA. This is why I really love this moving average. And if I only had to use one, or only could use one on my charts, that would be the 21 EMA. But really nice action. We had another gap up. Now it's pulling back into that level, so I'll be watching it versus that 21 EMA, and just to see if it can push higher through this DTL here. Let's go ahead and actually draw that into the charts. And also we'll go ahead and add an alert right here to see when it pushes through that level. But definitely a strong name here. Not necessarily my style, exactly what I'm looking for, but definitely a lot of money to be made. And this is in a really nice, strong trend as it makes its way towards this gap fill. So we'll have to see whether it can push through that 250, 248 level or so. Moving on to Microsoft, also moving up the right-hand side of this consolidation, broke through these highs on Friday. Really nice action. Nice push higher on volume, consolidation on lower volume, and it's also above a rising 2150 and 200 SMA. So not much to say when it comes to this stock. Nice push through this 294 key resistance level, and now it has to deal with a 314 and have this mess of consolidation. A lot of trading happening in this area, but overall definitely looks constructive. Nvidia, the semiconductors were kind of the strongest group. They've kind of cooled off a little bit. However, this is kind of, it's running on the tailwinds of semiconductors as well as AI, all those different potential growth areas, and it continues to act well. Respect that 21 EMA. So, you'll notice during this video, I pointed out several times when these growth stocks really respect that level when they're in trend from base to base, which is why I love it. And really nice action Friday, pushing higher off that moving average after you had a pullback on lower volume than it has been moving up on. So definitely one to watch. It's just poking above, once again, the pivot of this kind of 281 area. So we'll have to see whether it can push higher from this point and make its way back towards those all-time highs. 289 is a key level, which is likely why it's stalled there on this day. So definitely want to see a big push on volume, indicating that there's institutional, support behind this move and accumulation, which it looks like after this strong run. At some point, it will break and test the 50 SMA, but we'll have to see what happens and where it progresses from that point. Moving on, I just want to take a look at Tesla. This is probably the weakest of these kind of mega caps, but looked constructive last week once again. We did have a gap down on earnings, but it kind of held that level. Tried to push lower, couldn't, and then formed this nice tight area. Let's actually go ahead and zoom in here, and you can see it popped through that level right against the 21 EMA now, and we'll have to see whether it can retake that and start kind of a short-term uptrend above a rising 21 EMA. We're still below it at this point, and we'll have to see whether it can retake the 50 and eventually 200 SMA as well. And you can see, we're still technically in a stage where downtrend below declining 200-day moving average, but constructive move off lows, and just have to see where it progresses from this consolidation from 216 to around 153. And taking a look at the fundamentals, you see a little bit of slowdown in terms of earnings, but revenue is still pretty good and set to pick up in early 2024. So that is pretty much it for Tesla. And overall, my kind of thoughts on the market are, we had, of course, let's go back to the QQQ as I discussed this. We had the Fed announcement here, negative reaction initially. We pulled back to the 21 EMA. But we weren't able to push lower from that point. So even though, it wasn't strong news, we weren't able to push lower, and we kind of refused to die here on this key indexes. And, even though some leadership has, pulled back pretty hard. So looking at IoT, there's a name I was watching pretty closely. This kind of died. MXN definitely weaker as well. But, we haven't managed to really diminish the quality and number of leadership. There's still certainly a lot out there. And we have kind of new breakouts every day. So bringing up, let's see, DKNG. Nice breakout on earnings, new stage 2 uptrend, potentially watching for a push through this HVC. This will be on my watch list that I'll post in tomorrow's video. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. And also bringing up shop. I'm watching for, some type of consolidation, little base forming. You've got the HVC. You could have entered definitely yesterday. You've got nice volume as well as it kind of completes this bombing formation. So there's definitely a lot to watch here and a lot breaking out. And we'll have to see what happens from this point. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Obviously, we've got the QQQ at a key level. We'll see if we can progress from this point. I love to see the SPY in conjunction with that continue to move higher, continue to trend, and for the IWO to move off these lows. But in terms of leadership, definitely a lot to watch here. And this is just a quick look at some of the names I'm watching here. I'll go into a lot more detail tomorrow. Uber, really nice push, gaps on volume here. And now I'm watching for a consolidation and push higher from this level, but I'll go into a lot more detail later on, basically tomorrow. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead and leave a like down below. Also, let me know your thoughts on the market down below. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. Do you think we progress higher from this point? What are you watching in terms of leadership at this moment? Give me 1 or 2 names. And with that, thanks again for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and see you guys in future videos. Take care.